questions so far?
Does this have anything to do, like, with the heart math technique?
Well, yeah. This here, you have to learn to counter the stress in you. I mean, you can't get rid of it around you. So all you can do is change the way you deal with it. Because the stress really messes up your body, you have to be able to deal with it in some way. And so, yeah, Heart Math Institute they have a piece of equipment they call an M-Wave unit, which trains you because it's based on heart rate variability. Heart rate variability has to do with microarrhythmias of the heart. And what causes the microarrhythmias of the heart?
Stress.
Stress creating autonomic nervous system imbalance, over-triggering the sympathetic response. So you can train yourself to stop that. And you can tell with this feedback device because it tells you whether you're doing an incoherent heartbeat or coherent. And when it goes from incoherent to coherent, you now have re-regulated your autonomic system. So that was one of the things we wanted to talk about today, was the fact that, yes, the stress is going to be one of the things you're going to have to do if you're going to lose weight, because the stress is throwing everything haywire. That's one of the biggies. So apart from the chemicals and apart from the metals, it's the psychological toxins that you have to deal with. Now you may need to clean out some of your epigenetic stuff. You brought it in from your ancestors. Your crazy ancestors. Now, interesting, in homeopathic medicine, years ago, like 100 years ago, more than that actually, 105, 115. I was just trying to count back to the first paper that was published in homeopathic medicine was 1795 in Germany by Dr. Christian Friedrich Samuel Hahnemann. Anyhow, at some point he discovered that he could get people well, but then they would go back into their problems again over time. At least a lot of them would. And he said something else has to be going on, so he restudied all the people he treated, realized that there was something else going on in the background, and he called that a miasm, which means an inherited taint. In my mind, what he discovered was epigenetics. So you bring it in with you. It's an imprint in you. It predisposes certain things to happen in you physically and psychologically. Homeopathically, that is one of the ways, constitutional homeopathically, to wipe out this inherited taints, or the miasms, or the epigenetic. And until you've worked with homeopathics, you would never know how well it works and to what degree it works. For example, I've seen people who were extremely depressed and suicidal. All they could do was think about killing themselves. One dose, one high potency, it's all gone. They can't even think of suicide, let alone try to plan it. It's just gone. The mood's up and the thought's gone. But that's imprinted stuff, and homeopathics are one of the ways you can wipe out the imprints. There's others. There's a way now, using some of the electronics that I work with, where your voice is analyzed for the frequencies, and there's groups of frequencies that have to do with various disturbances in the system. It creates a treatment that, in essence, neutralizes the negative energy tied to these emotions. So, I should say the emotion, but the memory. So the negative emotions then can be neutralized out, so you can still have the memory, but you don't have the emotional garbage or tag that's carrying on with it. And they work very well.
How much research has been done in terms of what foods, what properties in foods, like healing properties of foods, for example, like with foods that are very high in antioxidants, like say blueberry. Somebody, let's just say hypothetically, somebody is depressed a lot. And every day they have a bowl of blueberries, and after, let's say, 30 days, their mood, things just start balancing out. So is there research showing that certain foods or having certain food groups, changing the diet then again can reconfigure or remap some other areas within us.
Well, if you back down all the way to the, what do I want to say? You've got to back down to the vitamins and minerals that are present, and then behind the vitamins and minerals are molecules, and the molecules have vibration. So we're talking about an energetic quality as well as what we would call a chemical quality. Yeah. But if, you know, there's nothing, there's studies of the elements, even the emotions and everything else related to it. Especially in Holland, there's a doctor over there that's done a tremendous study of elements and how they affect us. And that, again, has to do with the vibrational frequency. That's what there is there that would do that. So, but there's an energy, too, that they carry, a quality of energy, that is the difference between a healthy piece of food and a denatured piece of food, which is just all that's left is the chemical side, but none of the energetic side. So, I'd say the closest thing to that's aromatherapy, which is at least that part of it that affects the olfactory part of the brain. Because, you know, the olfactory nerves go directly, without any junctions, into the limbic system of the brain, which is the emotional circuits of the brain. So anytime you sniff something, it is immediately in the memory emotional circuits. There are some groups of doctors in Switzerland that their total treatment is aromatherapy. That's all they do. But it's a two-edged sword, because it can be disturbing to your system, the wrong ones, as well as the right ones, beneficial. And it's extremely powerful, so you have to watch or you can screw yourself up. But it is good.
Because you mean a smell could trigger a bad thought, couldn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, sure could.
Yeah, and or it can be overriding. It could be a big problem. Now, there's a lot of ways, and I think that this M-wave, or another one called stress eraser, that works on the same method of heart rate variability, is you're learning to rebalance by biofeedback your autonomic nervous system. There's another one that's based on breathing that does the same thing, because you're watching the breathing cycles, and by breathing you can change it. The other big thing, Jill just left, didn't she?
No, it's just like the bathroom.
Oh, okay. There is a monitor out if you
yes.
actually want to lose weight. Oh, she has it there?
Yeah. What?
Yeah. This is one of the newer feedback mechanisms in a sense. And it's called Body Media is the company. And you wear it on your arm. It has sensors on the back, and it reads what's going on with you in terms of your sleep cycles and your sleep, as well as how much you're burning in terms of motion, because it measures your steps, and it measures your emotional reactions. And then you plug it into the computer, and it gives you a whole printout. So if you said, okay, I want to lose 5 pounds a week, you put it in this program, and it shows you how much steps you need to take, all the things you need to do to achieve that 5 pounds a week. Then you can plug it in every day, and it reads from it in each of the areas that it has outlined how well you succeeded in those. And it does work well. It's something brand new. Well, it's brand new to me. It's been out for a little while, but it's brand new to me. And so, yeah, you wear it 23 hours a day. Take it off 1 hour a day, and it will tell you what's happening. Now, the most expensive model has a separate readout unit that if you right now wanted to look at each of those factors, you could on this little dial that reads out. But otherwise, you can't read anything on it. You just once a day plug it into your computer, and it gives you all this information. So it helps you plan out a program and whether you're achieving or not. I just think it's a good help to help people be able to do that. So I'm working on a complex program. I say complex, it's not terribly complex, but I want to do it right, that addresses all the things that you need to address to get on a good weight program and deal with all the different areas you need to deal with. The stress factors, the food factors, the right foods, setting up the cycles, the meals, everything you need to do so that you can put together a meaningful program and make it work. Jill is wearing this right now, but she took it off so we could see it. So all that stuff will be on my website, and I'll tell you on there when the program is ready, and we'll probably do a mailing too, but we'll tell you when the program is available. And that will help you, that's somebody that really wants to get on a program. What we want to do is reprogram your whole system, your psyche and so forth too. So there's also some special CDs that utilize either various forms. One is called HPP, which is peripheral processing, and all it means is that you play the CD and you put the headphones on, and it tells you two stories that are about the same thing but in a different way. So while your brain is occupied trying to listen to these two stories, it's also encoded in with that, getting wherever you want to go, either managing stress, losing weight, you name it, whatever, sleeping better, whatever it is you want to do, can be a part of that. So that's one of the systems that's out there. There's another one that had by Eldon Taylor. I use a lot of his stuff. It's a type of subliminal, but it's much different. First of all, he gives you the text of what's in there. This guy's worked with this stuff for years and proven in clinical studies that his stuff works. Again, if you listen to headphones, in one ear, going from the right ear to, the left ear to the right hemisphere, it plays the information in reverse, along with either nature sounds or music. In the right ear, going to the left hemisphere, it talks the way we talk normally. So there is something to do with reverse speech. We don't have time to talk about the implications of reverse speech, except to say that when we first come into the world, we start out in reverse speech, and so socialization causes us to change it to the other way. And if you record somebody like a small child when they're first starting to talk, and you play it in reverse, you hear that they're actually saying words, but they're reversed. Children who are resistive to socialization we call dyslexic, because they want to write things and see things backward because they're working heavy out of the right hemisphere, and they see it in a different way. So we socialize everybody and try to force everybody into a mold, which some people don't do well at doing that. And so that can create some problems. But anyhow, Eldon found out if you do reverse speech in one ear and regular speech in the other ear, feed them to the right hemispheres, it uses the whole brain to make change that you want to make. So his stuff is very good. There's another one that I can utilize and do utilize that teaches you how to relax yourself. It's actually self-hypnosis is all it is. And hypnosis only means that you give yourself suggestions to do what you want to do. And so that's what that utilizes, and that can work very well. So those are ways that you can use, especially with weight programs, to help deal with some of the background stuff that's a big problem. There is another one out, and Connie's quite acquainted with that, called Emotional Freedom Technique, which can go along with this, where you're actually tapping acupoints on meridians related to thoughts that are problematic and or feelings that are problematic. And you can utilize that as a self-help thing to make change. So I want to put together a program with options, and I've been working on it actually. It's not that I want to, I have been. And we're going to make it available so that if people really want to reset their system and make it work right and lose weight and keep it off so that it's now a lifestyle. It's just not, okay, we lose the weight and then in a few weeks we put it back on, except we're now heavier than we were before, which is what happens so many times. But number two, it's not even good for your system. So anyhow, all this stuff will be available through the site, and I'm going to put it in tiers. You know, if you want something that's the most powerful and the most rapid, you can do this. If you can't do that, then you can do this, and give some options to it. It's taking a little bit of effort to put all this together and make it work. But knowing that what we're really doing is we're removing the insulin resistance, we're removing the leptin resistance, so that the body can burn off the fat and not know that it's got too much. Once you develop the leptin resistance, you don't know. The brain doesn't know, so it just keeps putting on more weight. And actually, fat will burn off. I mean, normally that's the first line of burning would be from fat that we have in our diet for energy. But fat is the one way that the body can store energy for down the road in the case of an emergency, which is why this whole mechanism is there to begin with. Okay, do we have any questions up to this point? I don't know how we're doing time-wise. Yeah, we're getting pretty close.
You were mentioning about the olfactory nerves.
Yeah.
Do you know what would cause a person not to be able to smell?
Not to be able to smell, damage, or deficiency. Zinc deficiency is one of those elements that's very important with olfactory function. But there could be, you know, I would say all the B vitamins too are big, especially B1, 2, and 6 are the big ones for nerve function in the body anyhow, along with B12 is the other B12 element.
Is there too much? It's interesting you mentioned about zinc because as we get older, we start to lose some of our taste. So the zinc
would improve that.
Would improve it. But now, is there a particular dosage? In other words, we should not exceed a daily dosage of zinc. Can zinc be detrimental after a while, or what does it do in terms of?
Well, you know, if you go back to reading Roger Williams, PhD, who did the book Biochemical Individuality, which I have a copy here, everybody's different, their requirements can be slightly different, but the ranges can be kind of wide. I would say most people are probably going to need 25 to 50 milligrams of zinc in that range. 10, I think, is too small.
Are you talking about every day?
Every day.
25 to 50 milligrams?
Yeah. There is an oral test you can do that you have this liquid with zinc in it and put it on your tongue, and if it tastes awful, you have enough zinc. If you can't taste it, you need zinc. Now the other big thing that with all this weight loss is the iodine factor, and I didn't mention that yet. There's a gross deficiency of iodine in everybody, period. The recommended amount by the government is 150 micrograms a day, which is barely enough to keep you from having a goiter. Barely. Unfortunately, every cell in the body needs iodine to carry out its function properly, and the thyroid soaks up a lot of it. In women, the breast tissues needs a tremendous amount of iodine to avoid fibrocystic breast and breast cancer, as well as the ovaries. In Canada, for years, the treatment for ovarian cysts is large doses of iodine, and it'll cause them to break up and disappear. If you don't have enough iodine, you will have a tendency towards cyst formation. So iodine is only recommended, the amount is 1/100th of what it should be. You should be doing like 12.5 to 15 milligrams a day, not 150 micrograms. It's just 1/100th a day. And in men, of course, prostate cancer and prostate function, iodine is a major player. Every cell of the body needs iodine, along with its cofactor, which is selenomethionine. That means selenium in the methionated form. Two of those work together, and you need those as a prevention for cancer and to make the cells work properly and to protect the cells. Every cell in the body, when it's getting worn out, the way it's supposed to do is it's supposed to break apart, build a new cell, and then die off. That's called apoptosis, the normal cell death in the body. Without the iodine selenium factor in it, it just gets weaker and weaker and finally either dies or goes into senescence, which means your body gets weaker and weaker and weaker. One of the big symptoms of low iodine is low body temperature. And I noticed it a few years ago starting, that the people that I've worked with had a deficiency of temperature, meaning they would be 97, some 96 something, and the way to take your temperature is to get a very accurate thermometer, like I think it's Walgreens carries one. It's called liquid metal. It's not mercury, but it looks like a mercury thermometer, and it's pretty accurate. And to measure your temperature 3 times a day, orally, starting 3 hours after you get up, 3 hours later, and 3 hours later. You get 3 measurements. When you average those, it should come out to 98.6. If they're not, your body temperature is too low, and you're going to need iodine. But I wasn't finding anybody with it there, and I even did special urine tests with challenges with iodine, and I found that everybody I tested was low in iodine. Anywhere from a lot to a terrible lot. I know another doctor that did 3,000 people, and one person out of the 3,000 had fairly good iodine. And they evidently were doing a lot of supplementing. But other than that, everybody's deficient in it, and it's extremely important to function right and for the thyroid to function right. Even though you're not developing a goiter, doesn't mean that the thyroid's working right. And besides, the liver has to take the thyroxin after it's produced, help to build the thyroxin and produce and convert T4 to T3. T3 is the active form, and if the liver is not working right, it either doesn't make the conversion at all, number one, or number two, it can do something called reverse T3, which hardly works in the body. So even though you do a blood test and everything looks good on your thyroid, you cannot be functioning right with the thyroid as far as the thyroxin. And iodine is going to be one of the things that happens, because I've noticed as I started putting people on the higher doses of iodine and building it back up in the body, that their body temperature started coming up, and we've had people get back to 98.6 by correcting just the iodine selenium factor alone. So anyhow, that has to be part of it, and that's something I would look at in this program as far as making it all work properly, is we've got to address all the issues, at least that I know of at this point, to redress everything.
What would be the ratio for the iodine and the selenium?
I would do probably for a while 50 milligrams a day of iodine in a divided dose, twice, 25 in the morning and 25 in the evening. And I'd also do about probably 400 to 800 micrograms of selenium in the form of selenomethionine, which is a selenium-methionine combination. Those together to make it work. Any other fast questions? Or slow questions? Whatever.
If you have to take a B12 shot like I do every month, because I went for my checkup, what does that mean exactly, and how
Well, it means probably the liver can't store it up to begin with, which means probably a liver issue. And secondly, or the body's not getting it in properly. See, that goes back to digestion too, because there's something called intrinsic factor in the stomach that has to be released to mix with B12 so that in the terminal ileum of the small intestine it can be absorbed. If the small intestine is like Crohn's problems or some other kind of problem, it may not absorb it even if you do have that.
Well, it seemed like I got it after I became lactose intolerant, because I can't eat milk and cheese anymore.
Well, you should never be able to eat milk or cheese. What blood type are you?
I don't know.
Well, neither A's nor O's can eat it, so about 3 to 4% of the people can't eat that dairy anyhow. And what it does is it damages the bowel tract, and it's not necessarily the so-called lactose. It's actually a big protein molecule in milk called caseinate. So calcium caseinate is what you can't tolerate. And what it does is it'll damage your small intestine over time, and it'll make problems get worse and worse.
What can you do to make your blood get better, or is that anemic? Is that anemia when your B12 is low? Are you anemic?
It could keep you from building red blood cells like you should if you don't have the B12, and it's also important for the brain nervous system to function right.
So,
and it's also good and necessary for your DNA to express and build new cells.
So what vitamins do you take to build that back up?
Well, you've got to find out what's going on and clean up the diet, number one, so that you're not putting up, because if you're type O, it's not only going to be milk, it's going to be grains, all the gluten.
Okay.
So that can be a problem. If it's type A, it's basically going to be dairy and too much protein, because A's can't tolerate all the protein.
What was the name of the book by Roger Williams again? Biochemical?
It's called Biochemical Individuality.
Okay, thank you.
They have a newer version of it. It came out. In fact, I think it was Jeffrey Bland, I think, added some notes to it. Biochemical Individuality is what it's called, actually. Roger J. Williams, PhD. The key to understanding what shapes your health, the basis for genotrophic concept. And he's saying that different people need different amounts of B vitamins, so fortunately the range of toxicity of B vitamins is pretty wide, so as long as you get a good dose, if that's still not doing it and you're still developing symptoms of a particular B deficiency, then you may need to up that one. Like B6, you may need to take even more. So that you have to kind of do by titration. But see, he says how individual we are is so much, he has pictures of stomachs in people. And there's 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 different stomach shapes that he noted in people. And liver, same way. He showed a whole pile of livers and how much different they were in all these different people and different things in the body. Look at all the different liver shapes. So we're not exactly the same, we're generally the same. So we got different blood types, therefore different food demands and difficulties. And it goes on and on. There's all kinds of uniquenesses in each of us, and then by the time you throw in the programming for the mirror neurons and the epigenetics that we bring in, makes it kind of interesting. And see, he didn't even know about that back then. He didn't know about the epigenetics and mirror neurons and neuroplasticity and neurogenesis and all the stuff that's learned now. Now there's a new one, I'm just going to throw it in real fast, is that they discovered now that they've only been studying about 1/6 of the brain. Because they now found that the glial cells aren't just filler cells and protective cells for the neurons. The glial cells actually conduct information, and they are responsive to neurotransmitters. And because there's at least 6 times as many glial cells as there are neurons, that means they've only studied a fraction of the brain. So it's wide open. What it amounts to is it's starting over now in brain neurology. All the stuff they thought they knew, they don't know. And, of course, the importance of the prefrontal lobe, and that's the other thing I didn't get a chance to mention real fast, is that now they found out that the left prefrontal lobe and right prefrontal lobe, how they work, and there is a state of mind from meditation where you can activate the right or left prefrontal lobe, putting it into a high-frequency state that makes you extremely aware of everything around you, but emotionally not affected by it. And it's called mindfulness, a state of mindfulness. So you're very alert, very aware, but everything's not beating you up. And that's something you can learn to do too. There's ways of doing it, and that's going to be part of what we're talking about too. The right prefrontal lobe is directly connected to the amygdala, which is connected to the senses coming in, the so-called basic or reptilian brain. So everything that bugs you kicks off the amygdala and the right prefrontal. So those people tend to be, if they're fixed over there, negative, distressed, very emotional, very upset. And if they can shift over to left prefrontal, everything calms down. They're very alert, they feel good, they have a state of joy, etc., etc. So we're going to talk about all that too. So just to give you some ideas of what's happening and what's being found out. Any one fast final question?
Can you take the iodine supplements if you've ever had a reaction to any kind of the iodine contrast type stuff?
Yeah, I'd start slow, but the iodine contrast is a special molecule of iodine which is very toxic. The chances are no. I would take homeopathic iodine first to kind of level yourself out to it if you knew that you had that, and then take the iodine. Start out at a low dose and titrate it up. But it's a different form. You know, like you can take chromium, which you need, and mix it with the wrong molecule, and it's extremely toxic in the body. They're finding that in drinking water now. Did you hear about that? Yeah, a form of, I think it's called trivalent chromium. Extremely toxic, and it's in the drinking water of a pile of the cities in this country. It's just, you know, something good can become bad under the right set of circumstances. For example, what's one of the basic molecules of vitamin B12? Yeah, one of the forms of it is called cyanocobalamin, right? It has cobalt, which could be toxic in it, and it has cyanide in it. But it's not toxic in the form that we take it into the body. Anything makes sense? Everything makes sense? Or nothing I said makes sense? Okay, I guess we've done it. It was nice to have you here. We're going to keep you posted on what's happening, and watch the site for information about this thing all being put together. It's going to be dynamite. Everybody's going to lose that wants to. And stay off. We're going to change the shape of the world, right? Welcome to another session of MindYourHealthcast.com. You just viewed the live lecture that was done at the office, and as I'm sure you went through that, maybe some of your questions were answered and maybe some more questions were raised. Well, the material that I used there was a combination of things I'd learned over many years of working with people, some who very successfully lost weight and some who partially lost weight and some who didn't do well at all because they really underneath were not too motivated to lose weight. At any rate, as of the time that I did that lecture back earlier this year, that was the latest material I had. Since then, of course, as is the case, there's always new material coming out, new research, or I uncover more research. Sometimes it's not because it may not be there, but because I just haven't been able to connect with it yet. We want to talk about this whole issue of weight loss. I have over many years, used approaches that worked very well. Way back before I got into homeopathic medicine, when I was doing a lot of psychotherapy and counseling, we had people with weight issues. And in general, I had some very good results without changing anything except the person. And they would lose weight well. And then I had some other cases that it didn't work very well at all. And as we delved into it more, we found that there were drivers in the people that were moving them in certain directions, one of which the weight was a protective mechanism. And when that's the case, that you're using it as an emotional defense or protection, then it's not going to work, because whatever the driver is the way you end up going. Now, sometimes consciously you may talk yourself out of it for a short time, but sooner or later you're going to flip back. And I can give you a good example of what I mean. Many years ago, this lady came to me and said she really needed to lose weight. She had gotten to the point in her life that she sat in a rocking chair all day and rocked with a large pan of ice cubes in her lap and crunched on ice cubes all day. And at the same time, she had put on a huge amount of weight and it just was not budging. And so it was quite unusual, I have to say. She consumed many pounds of ice cubes every day. And probably was wearing out her teeth. Well, right off, I knew that if somebody is rocking and crunching, they have a tremendous amount of aware or unaware anger. Sometimes they're aware, sometimes they're not. But at any rate, I knew there had to be a lot of anger or she wouldn't be crunching, because, little kids, when they get angry, they have a way of dissipating that anger, and they kick and they punch and they bite. And those are ways of getting out the anger out of your body. So I knew there was anger, but it took us a while, because I utilized hypnotherapy, which normally, if the person were motivated to lose weight, it would help them lose weight very readily, because they would have the connection between the unconscious and the conscious working together to do that. However, as it ended up in this particular case, this lady at one point was very thin, trim, and very nice looking. However, she had one quirk. She was married and had some children. That wasn't the quirk. But the quirk was that once the kids were gone from the house and her husband was gone, she would go down to the local truck stop and pick up truck drivers and spend time in the motel with them.
And she enjoyed doing that, and there were some other mechanisms going on. We don't even have time to get into all the details, but the bottom line was that she enjoyed this lifestyle until one day, one of her daughters almost caught her, and it shocked her to the point that she knew she couldn't do that anymore, yet she felt this strong compulsion to do it. And as I say, we won't go into the dynamics why she felt the strong compulsion. As it ended up, the only way to keep herself from engaging in that behavior was to put on a lot of weight. And when she put on a lot of weight, she knew she would be unattractive to the drivers. And since she was unattractive, then she was safe from engaging in that behavior. She wouldn't bother going down because she knew they would not be interested in this very fat lady hanging around looking for drivers. I suppose there could be a rare exception to that, but in general, it didn't work the way she wanted it to. So, underneath, there's a tremendous amount of anger because here she's in conflict. She wants to be slim and attractive, but at the same time, she's fearful that if she is, it's going to put her right back in the other lifestyle, and if she does that, she might get caught, and she gets caught, she gets exposed, and she's very upset, her family falls apart, all kinds of things could happen. So as a consequence, she didn't lose the weight because she was so fearful that if she did, that she would go back to the other lifestyle, and she wasn't interested in working on, at that point, the reasons why she felt this compulsion to go and pick up truck drivers. So at any rate, that's one of the cases where probably until she deals with her underlying issues, nothing is ever going to work because she's going to be afraid to lose the weight because the drive is stronger to keep it on than to take it off. So no program is going to work for her, and if it did, it would barely work, or she would just flip back like that. I had others with different drivers, but the idea is the same. There's some kind of an emotional thing that made it better for them to be heavy than to be thin. And so no program was going to help them. And I know you may or may not realize how powerful the emotions are in the weight issue, but they can be. Now, I can say that sometimes weight is an emotional protection. That was one of the things I read into. You're always excused. This one lady felt that as long as she was way overweight, nobody expected her to dress in the latest fashion. They didn't expect her to look well kept, the latest hairstyle, the latest makeup, and so forth. So she was excused from all that. And so that gave her a feeling of relief to be heavy, yet at the same time she had this conflict that she didn't want to be heavy. So the driver, however, was stronger to keep the weight on. I had another one that was really strange. A lady had given 2 of her children away right after she was first married. The first 2 children she had, both were girls. She gave them away. And at some point, guilt set in because of a question that a later daughter asked her. Said she wished she had had sisters, or a sister at least. And it all of a sudden hit her. She had 2 sisters, but she had no idea where they were. She had given them away. So what had happened is she felt so guilty that putting on the weight became a way of committing suicide. She would just eat herself to death, and nobody would look down on her for dying from overeating like they would if she picked up a gun or took poison or whatever. So very powerful driver, and no way she was going to lose weight. So even with hypnosis, I had a few cases where the people were not going to lose weight because the drive was stronger to keep it. So I'm saying all that to say that many times with any kind of weight loss program, if you don't deal with emotional issues, you're probably either not going to get it off, or you're going to get it off, but you won't be able to keep it off. It'll just come right back on again, and usually more so than before. So it's something to keep in mind. And I'm not saying that to make everybody think that every weight problem is a very bad emotional problem. There's other reasons why. But I have dealt over the years with probably about every one. There are some rare cases where there is really a major chemistry upset, and I've seen that happen before. And I've seen people that once we got their body balanced, they were able to trim off and no problem keeping it off. We've had some that would not eat the right diet. You know, I work a lot with blood type diet, as we were mentioning, not the one that's become popular, but Eat Right for Your Type. But this is one that was well researched scientifically by a group of doctors over many years, and that one I have great confidence in. And this one lady, she wasn't really heavy, she was just a little extra weight, and she had lost down to a certain level and would not go beyond that. And I had told her several times that with her blood type she needed to eat a certain way, and she didn't want to do it that way. And one day she came in my office and she says, "Okay, you win." And I says, "What's that?" She said, "Well, I decided I just could not do anything that would budge that last few pounds I wanted to get off. So I decided to follow the blood type diet, like you told me." And she said within a day, things started to happen. And over several days, she started trimming off the weight, the additional weight that she wanted to lose. So in that case, sometimes eating the wrong diet for you can be a problem. It stresses your system, it upsets the balance, and it just doesn't work right. Now, I just told you a couple of the problems of weight loss. Now, sometimes people just get addicted to eating too much. They are using it as kind of a stress handler, and so they just keep pouring in food and crunching it to get rid of their stress. Radiator time. So, and they would just keep pouring in the food and pouring the food, and it gives them relief from the stress. On the other hand, I've known people who under high stress lost their appetite, couldn't eat anything. But I do know that that can be one of the reasons that it can happen. So just the wrong food, too much food, the wrong for your blood type, or when I say other wrong, the wrong type of food would mean garbage food, fast food, not the balanced meal that I heard a doctor on TV many years ago say from southern Florida. He said, I'm not going to mention the name, but a fast food cheeseburger, French fries, and milkshake was a good balanced meal. It had food from all the different food groups in it. But he didn't even give any inkling that the quality of the food or the way it was prepared or what was added to it had anything to do with the food. And I know that that's not the case. I would say many cases the body's regulation system, and those are the ones we've had good success with easily, is, when I say easily, it might take a little time, but once we get the body clean of the buildup toxins, then they can start losing the weight. So you have physical toxins, and those are the additives to the food, the chemicals that you're breathing every day, those type of things that get into your body. They upset the liver. The liver doesn't work right. The carbohydrate metabolism isn't working right because the liver can't store and release sugar like it's supposed to, and so that can become a big problem. And also energetic toxins, X-rays, radioactivity, cell phone, all these types of radiations that we're being exposed to, and some people will cause the body to be blocked, and especially the hypothalamus in the brain, which is the master sensor, and it's the master processor and regulator via the hormonal system, is very sensitive to those chemicals. When I studied with the German doctors, they were emphatic about how you needed to clean out those toxins that would be affecting the hypothalamus so that it could not regulate properly. So that can be a problem with certain types of energetic toxins and, of course, emotional toxins. Now, we talked a little bit about the emotional already, but sometimes the emotional can get so bad that they actually put the weight on, and that drive is so strong you're just not going to take it off until you deal with that deeper emotional issue. And when you can deal with that, then you can take care of the problem. So when you think about the whole thing, you might want to think, what is your weight gain? I mean, by that, kind of a little pun. You're going to what is making you gain weight and what is your gain in gaining weight. So you might want to look at that aspect of it, and if you really want to lose well, you're going to have to pay attention to whether there's a driver that's really driving you the wrong way. The big problem is that we also, so many times, if we haven't dealt with all the issues properly, then we lose some weight, and then before we know it, we've not only gained it back and sometimes a whole lot more. The biggest thing I think is, however, that most programs out there do not deal with the emotions. Now, what I'm going to talk about is a multi-faceted program that I have. In other words, it's what I've been doing, but I've kind of tweaked it a little bit more in light of the new information that's out. And I've come up with a program I believe that is going to be very effective if people will find the time and the desire or the driver to lose the weight. In other words, if they honestly want to lose the weight and just having trouble doing it, I think we're going to make some good gains. Now, however, I have made some allowance for some of the emotional stuff in this particular program, and it will be part of the whole thing, and I think you will find that already there was a big study done on it. And not only did people lose weight, but they kept it off when they went back later and checked. And so as a part of that package, we'll be giving you a copy of that study that showed how it's done. Number two, we're going to actually give you in the package, because we're putting this into a package, and there's going to be about 3 tiers. Something very basic, something a bit more sophisticated, and something really sophisticated as far as how much you feel you can afford and how serious you are about losing the weight. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the HCG diet and so forth out there, where they're doing injections with a hormone called human chorionic gonadotrophin, which is the hormone produced by the embryo fetus in the uterus to keep the body from rejecting it. It acts like a camouflage in that case. There's a few types of cancers that will emit that type of hormone, so it can become a cancer marker. It's the same thing they're looking for in the urine and the pregnancy test is human chorionic gonadotrophin, or HCG for short. So an Italian doctor did a lot of study, came up with a program using these injections. Now, some of the more modern studies indicate, however, that there's 2 different molecule fractions of that molecule that are the most potent to really make it work well. And so some enterprising people have put together a product that's in a more homeopathic dilute level that will make use of that along with some other homeopathics. And so it's going to deal with the hunger thing and the body metabolism from the homeopathic viewpoint. And that's what I've had a lot of success with, is with using the right homeopathics, balancing the person, balancing the hormone system, cleaning up the hypothalamus, cleaning up the liver, and the body detox systems. So this program that we're talking about is in some tiers. The one tier is, of course, we're going to get all the basic statistics about you as you get started so we can see where you're going. We'll have a handbook that you'll be able to use that will kind of lead you through it, and it's not going to be complex. It's probably already sounding more than it is. We're going to make application of the leptin rules because, as you probably noticed in the lecture, it's very important that this hormone that's released from fat cells tells the hypothalamus in the brain that you have enough fat so that you start burning up the excess fat. And it stops storing it. And so that was the whole idea between the human chorionic gonadotrophin, or HCG therapy. But of course, the reason it worked so well is they did a 500-calorie diet. Now, if you didn't do the HCG and you did the 500-calorie diet, you're going to trim off a lot of weight. However, my experience is, and I think that a lot of people's experience is, that unless they're just extremely highly motivated, once they go off that 500-calorie diet, they're going to be so hungry, they're going to be throwing things in, and in so many cases, I've known that they can rebound back really fast. So We don't advocate the 500 calorie. We advocate a 1,000 calorie, and utilizing these new products that are out there. Now, the leptin rules have to do with when you can eat, because if you eat at the wrong times, you interfere with the leptin hormone, and when you do, instead of burning off fat, you actually can stop the process or even add fat. So you want to make sure that you do utilize this leptin rules of eating properly. And it's not difficult. It's just a very short 5 little rules that you need to follow. So you'll get a copy of that, and we'll go over it with you. Again, we're going to start you out with a week of detoxing on some different levels. Again, homeopathic. We're going to clear out a lot of toxins. There'll be one type of detox for a weekend, like starting on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday through Thursday you're going to do another type of detox, which involves water with some special homeopathic drops in it. And what that'll do is kind of clean out the liver, clean out the lymph, clean out the kidneys, and some of the general matrix of the body, which is the storage area between the functional cells in the body. We've talked about the matrix before. I don't know if you remember it or not. If not, it would be good you go back and look at that information and maybe get the DVDs for that. And also then, that's part of the program, the special fractions of the HCG, which you'll take orally. There's not going to be injections with the hormones. And besides that, that's getting kind of strange to the point that the FDA may pull it off. I know that some of the states now have outlawed that already. But what we have is not only legal, but been it's an FDA registered product that you'll be taking, so there's no issues with that. Also, we're going to make sure that you have the right nutrients that are needed, because there's certain information that your body has to have for the thyroid and everything to work properly and the cells to work properly. And so we're going to see that that's a part of the program you'll get. Now, one of the big additions is going to be a program that was researched by the HeartMath group out of California. And what that does, that is the one that deals with the emotional issues, and that's the one you're going to get a report of the study, a copy of that, and you'll be utilizing that process, which is a small monitor called a heart rate variability monitor that will put you in the right emotional state, which you'll learn to do, that you will not be so driven to be stressed, and you'll not be so driven to do a lot of things that will cause you to put on weight. So, and it's, again, not difficult to do. You can plug it into a computer, and there's ways of training yourself and taking yourself through these emotional steps. Not that difficult, and then you can carry the unit with you, so that if suddenly you're feeling stress, you can put your finger in, it'll measure your heart rate variability and tell you if you're under stress. So that's an important part that we want to make use of, is the this emotional side, which we've talked about as being a big problem. And also, there's going to be a special CD that you're going to be listening to. That it's called Inner Talk by a gentleman that I've known, a researcher and producer of some of the best stuff to help people do behavior change. Likewise, will help with the emotional side, and all you have to do is listen to it. And it works extremely well. He's actually researched all of his, like, weight loss, the cancer therapy, immune enhancement, and all that, and they can actually show that they do that. So you can listen to that while you're doing other things. It does not require you to focus on it while you're hearing it, or you can play it while you're working. And there's all kinds of ways you can utilize that. So that's extremely good to make change and will enhance the whole thing. Now, for the exercise part, for people that are local in this area, we're going to include in the package coming into the office 3 days a week and going on the whole body vibration, which is one of the best ways to tone up the body, build muscle, burn off fat, increase metabolism in general, build energy. I can go on and on and on, because we've talked about the whole body vibration before. So, and if somebody already has one, then great, they can use it. We'll make allowance for that. Also, if you are local, you can come in and can give you a weekly injection of a group of homeopathics that will enhance your body's metabolism and support it so that you can help get this off the weight and so forth and work very well. If you are not local, then we can do pretty much duplicate the same thing. We can give you ampules that you take orally. You crack them once a week and you take the ampule at home. So either way, they're pretty close. The injection's probably slightly more rapid in effect, but they both are going to work, so there's no problem on those. And also, this exercise, there is another type. If you don't have the whole body vibration unit and it's too far away to drive in, we're going to connect you with another type of exercise that you're going to love. It only takes a few minute bursts of movement, and then you rest, and then you burn a lot of fat like crazy. This has been researched for years and years. It's high intensity, short duration is what it is. And so for those who can't access the whole body vibration, they can do that, or they can do it anyhow if they like it. And I've been following it for quite some time, and the research is very outstanding, that you don't need all this hours of exercise. In fact, you do more damage than good. With this system, all you will be doing is you'll be doing short bursts and then rest, short bursts and rest. On the average, it's probably you're going to build up to maybe 20 minutes a week total and still get tremendous results. Now, I've seen some of the studies where the people changed nothing except just did this, and they burned off a tremendous amount of fat. They reactivated the leptin messengers that we've been talking about in the body. This messenger that says, okay, you've got more than enough fat, don't store anymore, burn it all off. And that's going to work. So we're going to tailor it slightly to each person, but in general, that's the program. And I think you're going to find it fascinating. It's really going to work if you really are serious. And if you want to deal with emotional issues, we have other ways at the office that you maybe want to deal with some of the emotional stuff first before you even start, if there's anything really major like a few of those cases I mentioned. Fortunately, that's not usually the case, but if there are something more involved, we can handle the other stuff in a different way first, then put you in the program. In fact, we may not have to, because I have seen people, as they resolve some of their emotional material that's deep, that's causing a lot of problems, that the weight just came off automatically anyhow. So everybody is different. You have to understand that to have a meaningful weight loss program, it has to be individualized to that particular person if you really want to make it work well. I see we've run out of time as usual. The big clock just keeps going and going and going. The Mickey Mouse hands are going like crazy, and it seems like there's never enough time. However, I hope I've given you enough to tweak your interest. Now, we are setting up a special page on mindyourhealthcast.com website just for the weight loss. There'll be details there, or you can call and get a consultation. I can give you a 10-minute consultation free if you want to call and ask about it, or if you want to make one to come in and talk for 10 minutes, I can do that, and that will be no charge to that. And we can get you going if that's what you really need to do. And of course, excess weight is not good for health. I don't think anyone would really argue that, unless they had some really, really emotional problems that they weren't able to deal with. Okay, our time is up. Don't forget to go to our broadcast, which you're doing now every week, and tell other people about it. Have them register on the sites or on our other site that is clickable from Mind Your Healthcast, which is Alternative Health and Prevention, which is about the clinic. And you can click directly to this broadcast, as I'm sure you know by now, from that same website. So, it was nice to be with you again. I want you to be healthy, enjoy your life, and be able to, if weight is one of your issues, then take care of it. And I'm convinced that if there is a program that will take it off and keep it off, I believe this is the one, because we are dealing more with the emotional side of the eating. and you're going to be happy and you're going to be healthier. It was nice to talk to you again, and we'll be looking forward to our next visit on the next week.